Hey, it's Buck with the Precision Rifle Network, and for my very first video on this channel, we are going to review the Ckye Pod, now by MDT. The Ckye Pod is not a new creation. Although it has just started to be seen on the East Coast in the last 12 months, it's actually been around for about 3 or 4 years on the West Coast, predominantly in the Pacific Northwest. Back then, a gentleman by the name of Ckye Thomas identified some deficiencies in bipod design at the time that he wanted to address for his style of shooting. So what did he do? Like any good inventor, he went to his garage and he invented one. So what deficiencies did he identify that he wanted to correct? Well, in the Pacific Northwest, there's some very rugged terrain. They're shooting on mountains, across canyons, rocky terrain. Nothing seems to be level, and they're almost always shooting over some obstruction like a log or some brush or some vegetation. So they needed long legs. They needed to be able to cant the rifle at some pretty severe angles. And this is what he came up with. So let's get into some of the features that all Ckye Pods share. When you order your Ckye Pod, you order it in Arca Swiss configuration or Picatinny. When you choose one of those mounting configurations, you pick whether you want it right hand adjustable or left hand adjustable. They also feature one-handed operation of all the controls. So if you want to deploy the legs, simple 2 fingers, grab it and pull it out. If you want to redeploy the legs, pinch it, push it in. If you want to splay out the legs, there's a simple push button on the back. You push it in, you splay it out to where you want it. And if you want to fold the legs, again, 2 fingers, you pull the button down, fold them up. They also all come with spiked feet. These are interchangeable if you want to run rubber feet. The spike feet work perfectly on all types of surface, grass, gravel, rocks, wood, and your buddy's hood if you so choose. Ask me how I know. They also feature grip tape on all of the legs. Why is there grip tape on the legs? Well, there are often times when you're shooting off of a 2x4 or a log, or a barrel of some sort, and you splay them out just right, your bipod will fit over the top of it in the middle here, and this will prevent the bipod from rocking back and forth. Another phenomenal feature of the Ckye Pod is the barricade stop. Now, I don't so much use it as a barricade stop per se, where you would put it on your rifle and the barricade stop would be pointing forward. How I like to use it is I put it on the rifle, and when I'm shooting some type of a barricade, whether it's a PRS barricade or something that requires me to use my bag, what I'll do is I'll set the bag on the obstacle or the barricade. I will set my rifle on top of it, and I will slide my bipod all the way back so that I sandwich the bag between my mag well and this barricade stop. And what that does is it acts as kind of a recoil buffer so that the rifle can only recoil so much because the barricade stop runs into the bag while you're shooting. Now, what were those features that Ckye Thomas originally wanted to fix on bipods back in the day? Well, if you've ever shot out west, you know that the terrain is rocky, nothing is level. Seldom are they shooting matches on an East Coast style gun range where there's typically mowed, flat, not a lot of traversing left and right, and your shooting positions are typically level. Out west, you're shooting on the side of a mountain, or you're shooting over some vegetation. So they wanted the ability to shoot a standard stage like we might shoot, but they also wanted the ability to extend the bipods at a taller height so they could get up over vegetation. They also want the ability to shoot off some very uneven terrain. So if you'll notice, I've got my bipod and my rifle pretty well leveled. Now, let's say I was shooting off of the side of a mountain or a rooftop, and this is where my legs were. Now, on your common bipod design of today, you get about 20-25 degrees of rotation left and right. Well, with the Ckye Pod, you get a full 170 degrees of cant left and right. So if you're shooting off the side of a mountain or a rooftop, there is no issue on leveling out your reticle while you're shooting here without having to monkey around with the legs trying to find that perfect position like we used to do. Another feature we're going to cover is the ability to pan left and right. This bipod gives you the freedom of motion to be able to rotate left and right a full 360 degrees. Now, if you're shooting a stage, I don't recommend rotating 360 degrees because you're going to break all kinds of safety rules, but you do have that ability. The way I use that feature most often is that when I fold up my legs to transport the rifle, my legs go forward. And because of the spiked feet, it doesn't like to fit in my soft case that well because the feet grab onto the case. So I simply fold them up, rotate them back, shove it in my soft case, and away I go. The Ckye Pod comes in two different models. The standard model, which comes with legs that are about 8 inches long, and the PRS version, which comes with legs that are about 6 inches long. And they did that because in the PRS, predominantly on the East Coast, there's not a lot of vegetation. You don't need to adjust for a lot of height because you're typically not shooting over logs and trees and debris and brush and vegetation. So they came up with a shorter version that fit the style of shooting that most East Coast shooters do. But on the West Coast, they predominantly like the longer legged ones. So with both versions, when the legs are splayed out, your barrel is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 inches off the ground. Now, you can rapidly push both buttons together and you can get your muzzle about 12 inches off the ground. You can extend both legs very rapidly and you can get your muzzle about 18 inches off the ground with the long one. And in the tallest configuration with the PRS model, you'll get your barrel about 15 inches off the ground. Now, rumor has it that they're coming out with another model that will have legs that have 2 extender sections in them, which will give you the ability to get your muzzle off the ground somewhere around 24 inches or higher. So stay tuned for that. So, in conclusion, do you need a Ckye Pod? I believe that if you use one of these for a day at a match, you will come to the same conclusion I did 2 years ago. Absolutely yes. If you happen to see me driving around the country in the MDT van and you want to borrow one and try it for a day, come see me. I'll borrow one to you. And at the conclusion of that match, I think that you'll say the same thing. I need one. Now prepare yourself. There is a little bit of sticker shock. These are $500 a piece. However, I think that's a small price to pay for something that you use on your rifle at nearly every single stage. Thanks for joining us today at the Precision Rifle Network. I look forward to seeing you at a match in the near future. Stay safe, take a kid shooting, and as always, boom.